Hi, my name's John and welcome to my blog channel. Today's video I consider to be my most important video, which is why I'm doing it first in this channel. And this video is on depression and, most importantly, how you can cure it. And I'm not talking about how you can manage it, I'm just talking about getting rid of it for good. Now I know this is possible because I myself suffered from depression, and I kind of discovered a technique known as focusing that I use to actually cure my depression. So in this blog post I'm going to discuss what is depression. We'll have a look into some celebrities and famous people who've suffered from depression, and then I'll get into how I discovered, how I basically cured it for myself. So first off, depression. What depression isn't, it is not sadness, it's not the blues, it's not feeling down. It's basically, it manifests itself basically as fear, an intense fear. You could almost say it borders on terror. For me, I remember I would be in a room full of people that I didn't know, and I'd get an anxiety attack, I'd get a depression attack, there'd be that familiar spiraling down feeling, and I would just be rooted to the spot and I couldn't move. I would be absolutely terrified of all the people around me, who weren't very scary people. They were, they were probably lovely people, and I didn't know them very well, but I would just be terrified that they would suss me out somehow and know that somehow there was something wrong with me, that I was a fake or whatever, and I couldn't move, because if I moved, they would see me and they would know. Now this doesn't make any logical sense, and I've got a video coming up that's attached to this, a video clip from a famous New Zealand rugby player by the name of John Kirwan, played for the All Blacks, who also suffered from depression, and he's been very open about it. And he talks about the fear aspect and how he actually solved his depression and managed it. Before I get into that, a brief search I've just done on the internet, celebrities who suffered from depression, has brought up people such as Dwayne "The Rock" Johnson also suffered from depression, Katy Perry, Lady Gaga, Bruce Springsteen, Robin Williams, we know so well. He passed away a year or so ago, also suffered very deeply from depression. So I'll just stop there for now, and I'll just play this clip from John Kirwan, who explains the fear aspect, and then he talks in this clip about how he sort of reached a turning point, and I'll play the video and then I'll talk more about that turning point, and then I'll get into the next step that you should take after that turning point. So there's a two-step approach, but let's just have a listen from John Kirwan.
Depression and anxiety is about fear, raw fear, a series of very, very scary thoughts that are controlling you. So it's just like being out of control in your head. For me, playing badly in an All Black jersey was an absolute disaster. I used to go to training and thought that everyone was watching me and they knew that I was depressed. Until the illness got stronger, then I didn't really care about the football. It was just about survival. Anxiety attacks might take 2 minutes, they feel like 3 days. You're always in tension. In depression, you don't feel normal. You feel very isolated, you feel very, that it's personal, that it's yours. You feel weak, you lose your confidence. And so you have a series of things happening to you all at once that depression gives you, that just flatlines you, Once I accepted it, I actually started getting better instantly. It was incredible. That was probably the best afternoon I'd had in 3 years. Once I accepted the illness and then started on the getting well road, I made it a little bit of fun. Mm-hmm. So I said to myself, how am I going to get the time in my head that is going to give me some mental relief?
Okay, so John Kirwan in that clip was talking about the fear aspect in the first part, how the fear that he had of people watching him, and the fear of failing in essence, or being seen to fail. And you see this manifesting itself, this depression, in a lot of celebrities. So it would appear that in a lot of ways the causes of depression can often be things like just being a celebrity, being out in the spotlight, being in front of people, and even you don't even have to be a celebrity, just being out there with people all around, and that you're not used to, can bring on a depression attack, an anxiety attack. Other causes, of course, are childhood trauma, loss of a parent, or childhood divorce, parents divorcing, abuse as a child, these sorts of things, and your depression will come on, not always when you're a child, but later on in life, and you just don't know where this thing's coming from or what it's doing. Just looking at my notes. The other aspect of depression is, as I said before, it's not sadness. You can't just cheer up, you can't just get over it. I remember one time somebody saying to me, cheer up, it might never happen, and that's got to be, angered me at the time, but this has got to be one of the dumbest things you can ever say to somebody, because you can't just cheer up, and it is already happening. It's happening right now, and you're in that moment. So don't say that, that's just really stupid. Second part, in that video, John Curran talks about how he came to terms with it, how he stopped fighting it, and that's the first point about turning the corner when you suffer from depression. The first aspect of it is you have to accept that you've got it. You have to stop fighting it. You have to surrender to it, if you like. Just stop fighting against it, because a lot of that negative feelings that you feel that you come from it, that comes from fighting against it. It's your reaction to it as opposed to the actual thing itself that causes the discomfort. So that's the first point in turning around, and then the second point I'll get into about how you can cure it once and for all. As I said, I used to suffer from depression. I remember the turning point for me came when I was at work one day. I used to take a ferry to get to and from work, and I was walking down the hill from work across the city, and it just came on. I had an anxiety attack as I was walking towards the ferry terminal, and I had this anxiety attack, and I just got to the ferry and I said, that's it, I've had enough. Okay, so that was that surrender point. It took me decades to get there, but I got there, and I said, look, I've had enough. Come on, you bastard, do your worst. I'm just not going to fight you anymore. And that's the first point that you have to achieve. You have to stop fighting it. Second thing I did, which was different to a number of other people, and this gets into that focusing thing, is that I thought, okay, something must have triggered it. There must be something that happened in the last hour or two that caused me to have this moment. And so I started backtracking in my mind over the events of the day, and I started walking myself in reverse back towards work. And then I hit upon this one moment where somebody said something to me. And that was, when I realised that moment and remembered that moment, it was like fireworks going off inside me, and it was like, that's it. That's what triggered the depression, this moment. This thing that this person said. Now, to this day, I can't remember what he said. And it wasn't really important what he said. It was the fact that I focused in on that and actually processed it. Now, I remember thinking, oh, well, now what do I do about this? I also remember that the depression just faded. It just went. That was it. It was gone, like smoke. It just disappeared like smoke into the atmosphere. And I'm thinking, do I need to do anything about this? Do I need to go and confront this person? And I'm thinking, well, actually, my depression's gone. It's just gone. And this moment lasted about 10 minutes for me to figure this out. Surrender, focus in, depression gone. I don't need to go and talk to the person. That wasn't actually what this is about. This was just about focusing and finding out what caused it. What was the trigger? What was this depression moment all about? And that for me was an amazing thing. And that was an amazing realization. And that's what I'm trying to bring to this video that adds to the whole depression discussion, is this whole concept of focusing. Now this video is part one in a two-part series. Because I'm going to concentrate into the second part of the series more about focusing and more about a book I discovered by a man called Eugene, I think his surname is Gendlin. Eugene Gendlin he wasn't a psychiatrist, but he studied people with problems, with issues, so-called mental health issues, and discovered this thing called focusing. And I discovered his book shortly after I had this moment where I'd figured out what caused my depression and how to stop it, I discovered his book on focusing, and he talks about exactly the same thing that I've just talked about. So I'm going to separate that into a second video, because that focusing technique isn't just for depression. It can be used for any emotion you've ever had, even the happy ones. Focusing is a way to process so-called negative emotions. Now, you can process sadness, you can process anxiety, you can of course process depression. You can also process happiness using these techniques just by focusing in and finding out what it's all about. And the other thing he talks about, which I'm going to cover more in this book, is he considers these emotions, these negative emotions and the positive ones, as being a way for our unconscious minds to communicate with us. Now, if this is the case, this means that depression is not a mental illness, in the same way that sadness or anxiety or happiness or any other kind of emotion, switch off the volume, is not a mental illness. It's just your unconscious mind trying to communicate with you. And once you realize that and you focus in on it, these things just dissipate. They just go. So I'm gonna finish the video here, and then I'm going to start looking and reading that book. And I've got to go and read it again, take some notes, and then in the next video, part 2 of this series, I'll be talking about focusing and more about focusing in the book that he wrote, and more about that second part of the process. So I hope you like this video, and please do subscribe.